I spent the morning arranging the living room as if it were a small banquet hall. White tablecloth stretched across the dining table, the edges crisp and tucked neatly under the corners. I lined the plates and glasses with careful precision, imagining the laughter and chatter that should fill the space. Balloons hovered near the ceiling, tied with curling ribbons that twisted softly in the draft from the open window. I stepped back every few minutes, assessing the symmetry, the balance of colors, the placement of chairs. Every detail mattered. Every detail reflected effort that no one had asked for, yet that I hoped anyone might notice. By 60:45 the food was set. Sandwiches arranged in neat triangles, cupcakes with tiny graduation caps on top. A platter of fresh fruit glistening under the kitchen light. I lingered over the fruit, adjusting the grapes, aligning the strawberries, noting the way the light caught the juice like little highlights of recognition. I wanted it to be perfect, not for anyone's approval exactly, but as a testament to my own care, as a subtle reminder that I existed in this space, not as a shadow, but as a presence that had invested in more than just the surface. The clock ticked toward 7. My wife's voice sliced through the quiet, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. "This party is for my family. You should sit somewhere else." I paused. My hands hovered over a plate of sandwiches. I wanted to argue, to explain, to protest. But there was nothing to say that wouldn't sound absurd. Why argue against being excluded from your own living room? I nodded slightly, mutely, as if acknowledging a law I had never agreed to. Then I turned away. The empty chairs stared at me as I walked past, each one a silent accusation. The food waited patiently on the table, arranged with care that would go unseen. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of the floorboards, even the gentle swaying of the balloons, all of it seemed exaggeratedly loud, emphasizing the absence of acknowledgement. I left the room quietly, letting the door close with the softest click behind me. Outside, I wandered down the street, letting the cool air press against my face. My mind replayed previous gatherings, previous moments where my efforts had gone unnoticed. The memory of a birthday party, the careful selection of gifts, the subtle hints of appreciation ignored, everything converged into a slow, simmering ache. I wasn't angry exactly, not in a way that demanded confrontation. I was quiet, reflective, aware of the recurring pattern, always present, never central. 15 minutes passed. I considered returning, wondered if I should simply leave entirely, whether my presence was worth the quiet exclusion. That's when I noticed movement at the doorway. My wife's stepdaughter had returned from helping a neighbor. She paused at the threshold, her eyes catching the arrangement I had orchestrated. For a moment, she simply looked, her expression shifting from casual recognition to something more akin to wonder. "Wow," she said softly. "You did all this?" I turned, caught off guard. The tone was not one of obligation, not a polite nod of acknowledgement, but genuine surprise. I nodded, barely, keeping my voice low.
"Wes."
She smiled faintly, stepping closer to the table, touching the edge of the tablecloth, as if verifying that it was real, tangible, not imagined. "It looks amazing," she said. "Thank you." I felt the shift before I fully understood it. It wasn't a grand gesture, no dramatic reversal of power, but something subtler, an affirmation that I existed, that my effort mattered, that someone noticed. I stayed silent, letting the acknowledgement settle around me. The party eventually began in its muted, awkward way. I remained mostly on the periphery, allowed to witness without intrusion, quietly present without confrontation. There were moments when I could have inserted myself, claimed attention, but I didn't. The recognition I had received was enough, fragile but undeniable, more than the silence of empty chairs had offered. Later, when the living room was still, the balloons drooping slightly, and the last guest had left, I returned to the table. The sandwiches had been eaten, the cupcakes reduced to crumbs, the fruit platter empty, but neat in its aftermath. I straightened a fallen ribbon, brushed a smudge from the tablecloth, and allowed myself a small, private satisfaction. No one else would see it, but it didn't matter. The quiet affirmation from earlier lingered in my chest, steady and warm against the usual emptiness. I walked to the window and looked outside. The street was empty now, the sky darkening, a few stars starting to pierce the evening. The house behind me held all the noise of a day that wasn't mine, yet it also contained a moment that had been. A small victory, subtle, almost imperceptible, but mine nonetheless. In the days that followed, nothing changed outwardly. My wife made no comment. My stepdaughter returned to her own routines, and the household resumed its familiar patterns. Yet I carried the memory of recognition quietly, like a book left open at a page that mattered most. The power shift had been minor, almost invisible, but it existed. It had happened in a glance, in a word, in the delicate acknowledgement that I had been seen. The ache of invisibility didn't vanish entirely, and perhaps it never would. But within it, there was a quiet dignity, a subtle reclamation of space, a proof that presence need not always be loud to be real. I didn't celebrate. I didn't announce. I simply existed in that acknowledgement, letting it fold into the quiet rhythm of home, knowing that sometimes recognition arrives not in the center of the stage, but in the smallest corners where it is needed most. And for the first time that evening, I felt entirely present.